turn my video back on, and I'd be happy to answer questions or additional questions. And I'd say either pop them in the chat or feel free to unmute and ask. Hey, Michael.
Gene, it's
Yes.
Michael from Vashon. On the great information, thank you. On the new member sign up now,
Yes.
if we set up our disclaimer form and have them, initial it and stuff, is there a report that we could generate that would say these people signed that form? Just so we have some documentation.
Yeah, so I don't think we actually have a report to show all the people that have signed it, but a couple of things will happen. One, you can basically see on each user, click on the user, go to agreements. To ensure, we have on our demo site, you can see when they basically signed it.
Mm-hmm.
You will also be told when they come in to check items out. If you try to check an item out to them, it will basically give you a big pop-up saying they have not signed the agreement. Then you'll have two options. Actually, you'll have three options. One, you can actually email the agreement to them. So if they have a smartphone, they could actually go and read it right on their smartphone and sign it. You could hand them a printed copy, and actually they'll basically, that's where this comes in, attested by, and basically they could give you a verbal okay, and you'd have the date and time that they did that. Some of our customers do that. You can also bypass it, let them have it this time, but then remind them to go and sign it, or basically sort of abort their checkout until they actually sign it. But you will know that they have not signed it when they come in. And then the other thing that will happen is anytime if they log into your myTurn site, and with having any agreements that are required, basically required for all, there are a few different options. If they haven't signed it yet, like something that would be normally required at sign up, they will have to sign it when they log in before they can really do anything else. So usually what happens is they'll have it signed by the time they come in, and if not, you'll know about it. So you basically can't easily give them items without them signing those agreements.
So does the new document then become required that they have? So we put in our doc, even though they've signed a paper one before.
Yeah.
So basically everybody, if we do that and use the system, everybody, when they sign in, would have to review, which isn't necessarily bad, but they'll have to do it.
They would at this point. I don't think we have an option to import that they've signed it yet. When this has come up, basically the handful of organizations that have switched over, actually probably more than that, they've actually kind of been happy to have people sign again, and then they have a better record of it. I know a few tool libraries that may have lost their paper copies at one point, and so they were kind of happy to have everyone do it. And then it also lets you update those terms, and you can add multiple. You can do required for sign up. The other thing you can do with our system is you can edit. So if you have like a typo or you have a sort of a minor change, if you do edit, that lets you sort of change the existing agreement. People won't need to re-sign it. If you do new version, that will actually require, you can actually see the old versions. You can see all the versions of your agreements. If you do new version, I won't save this because then I'll be signing agreements forever on our demo site. You can actually, and that will require everyone to re-sign that agreement just as if it were a brand new agreement. So if you do make material changes to your agreements, you can actually then, not that you want to do it right after you switch over to it, but in the further future, you can also require they re-sign everything.
Okay.
Gene, Neil here from Vashon again. Just a quick question. We're a not-for-profit, and using the expression your membership is, the fees are due is different than the sort of posture we would like to be putting out there. Is there a way for us to adjust the verbiage, such as sort of like your annual donation request has come up or something like that? But the idea is we want to change it from cost to opportunity.
Yes, you actually can. So there are a couple of ways. The first thing you'll want to do is modify your email templates and change wording in there. So membership expiring soon, membership expired, etc. The other thing you can do is that'll catch sort of those automated emails is under settings organization language. So one, myTurn's been translated into handful of other languages and some other and more in progress. But if you turn on translation mode, you can basically translate English to English. So if you're a newer myTurn user and your customers or users are labeled customers, you can change that over to members or to whatever else you want to do. And in the same way, basically, I made that change. Now anywhere basically the word members shows up alone, it is now changed to members. So you could basically make those changes. So instead of amount, let me just go to add item. And I will pick I'll add a tractor. And basically with translation mode, this makes this pretty easy. So instead of amount/fee, you could call this opportunity. I'm not actually going to make that change.
Yeah. I get
confusing, but you get the idea. And the other thing is if you can't easily, so there are some things you kind of can't get to, like the helper text in the fields. But if you go back to that organization language page, you can basically, if you scroll down, there's an all phrases page where you can basically also search for, there's a little search box on the right that'll show up. I think we have it's a few thousand different phrases. And then you can basically find it and change any of the wording on myTurn to just about anything you want. Just don't go too crazy with it. Then when you're emailing into support, someone I think jokingly changed their users to I don't know, it's something silly, like monkeys or something, and I think literally that is what it was. And but otherwise, so you can basically any of the wording you can change. I don't recommend changing sort of more common
phraseology,
like item types or things like that. If you have item types in the system that you'd like added that are missing, ask us, so that way we can make them consistent. And we have there's some benefits to everyone basically using the same item types, and we're gonna have some additional features, including like ability to have some default help information or how to use information, especially for tool libraries. It'll be tied to our item types, but otherwise feel free to make those customizations.
Gene, I have the last question. We had some issues early on with uppercase and lowercase in our numbering, that everything was all uppercase. So we called our tools VT, let's say 005. And then we found somebody put it in VT 005, but they weren't finding it. The reason was it was uppercase versus lowercase. Is there any way we can make that search more, like we can put the number in and avoid the letters altogether and it'll find it? Is that an opportunity to see?
So currently, no. Part of the reason there is that number of customers have those item IDs as barcodes, and barcodes, or at least certain types of barcodes, are case sensitive. And so the search to basically pull up, we could potentially add an option. There are two things that one we can help you with. One, we can help you basically, if you'd like us to, we can change them all to either all uppercase or all lowercase for you. We have a little tool where we can re-ID. The other thing we can do is remove the VT from all your item IDs. And we can do that in a batch for you easily, which we tend to recommend. Like, it just makes it faster to type in a straight number than having letters in front of it. So consider that. And we've gotten this request once or twice before. It might be from your group once or twice before, although I think there's at least one other group that has requested that. But at the moment, it is that way intentionally for when people are using barcode scanning, especially.
All right, last question is, I see you support multiple languages. If we enable another language, in our community want to see it in Spanish, how do we facilitate that?
So basically, Spanish is a pretty good translated language right now. We have French, Dutch on here. Click Save, and basically they could then select Spanish up top. And most things are translated. So not all of our translations are full. It will not translate sort of the item names for you,
Okay.
but basically most of the other. Now we'll see if I can make my way back in Espanol.
Wonderful.
And
is this applicable to the, do we need to post two versions of our agreements, one in English and one in Spanish? You're not going to translate our agreements.
We're not going to translate your agreements. And in that case, what I'd recommend is rather than having two separate agreements, put like English or Spanish first and then the other language second in the same agreement, so people don't need to.
Okay.
Like the agreements are not really internationalized, so you'll want to put them both translations in the same agreement.
Right. Good.
But I'm actually going to add that, because having a separate translation for the agreements would actually be really nice for our multilingual customers. So great questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Hi there, this is Miles. Thank you, Gene, for all your help. I'm wondering if there's any way to add any sort of time tracking, as this is mostly on the admin side. So for a volunteer or staff member, or even a myTurn staff to log into our account, and I'll spend 2 or 3 hours in there monkeying around with whatnot. And then I can, if there's a way where I can go in either the same day or even, even a month later and say, okay, last Monday I spent 3 hours in there, and then I can put that, on my timesheet sort of thing.
So we don't have a way to do that integrated with myTurn. There are some other platforms that obviously allow that. We do have plans for doing staff and volunteer tracking and scheduling. Probably if it's in 2021, it would be late in the year, probably a 2022 type of item based on the rest of our roadmap. But definitely something that, as well as things like class scheduling. Class scheduling is a little higher, so the ability to do class, essentially set up classes right through myTurn as well. Sort of our appointment scheduling and things like that are headed in that direction. But also doing things like volunteer management is on our roadmap, but not in there yet. This coming year, we're also going to be opening up APIs. And so that might make it easier to integrate with even third-party volunteer and basically volunteer management platforms. So if we don't get to it and you need it sooner and you want more direct integration, we may also just do it as, if we find a really good platform for doing volunteer management and time tracking that is also affordable to many of our customers, we may just, once we have those APIs, make some recommendations. We're very good at cooperation, so we don't feel like we need to add everything directly to the platform, but that is kind of core. So that is on our roadmap.
Gene, I wanted to take the opportunity to let you take a look at the chat and answer whatever's there, and also to thank you for enabling all of us to be able to do our work as well as you have. That's pretty amazing. So anyway, there's a couple of things there in the chat.
My pleasure. Thank you. I'd actually just brought that up as Miles asked his question as well. One other thing that I'll mention, I think I mentioned briefly when I was talking about gift certificates, is we will also, and this is a 2021 item, be adding the ability to sell items right through your myTurn site. So whether that's consumables or even like you want to sell off some excess tools, you'll be able to list them as for sale. And so that's coming. And let me sort of scroll through the questions. So here's actually a good question from Jason. Will a reservation prevent the item from being checked out before the reservation? So an administrator will get a warning, but can still check the item out. And it'll so do be careful. You will be warned about the item is reserved. So if someone does a walk-in or an ad hoc, but you can override that. Basically, administrators can essentially override just about everything. Just is there, we always, every time we have something where, okay, the administrator can't do something, someone's like, well, I have a special case where I really need to be able to do this, and we'll add another item in inventory if we need to. So and we have a revamp of the administrative check-in, check-out that's going to make those warnings much clearer, and then we probably will add an option to prevent it completely. Yeah, there's the verbiage question about memberships and donations and costs. How can we add location permissions to users in bulk? So you can't currently. Typically, most organizations don't have that many administrative users, and the location permissions, if we're talking about administrative, you really should only have those for your volunteers and your administrators. If you do have a ton that need them added, feel free to email us, and we can, and we'll see what's sort of going on.
Hey, Gene, I'm just gonna.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, this is Gina. I asked that question because since our users go back and grab the items themselves, it helps them figure out where they are if they can see the location code. So that's the interest.
Okay, so it's basically you want to be able to, the real need or the real goal is so they can see the location code. I don't think you want to give them the ability to edit inventory, which is what those location permissions are.
Yeah, we want them to be able to see it.
Okay, yeah, I had kind of answered that one earlier. We don't currently allow that. You do not. I don't think you want to give all your members the ability to edit. So the inventory permissions are for editing inventory, or managing inventory. So we'll add that to our roadmap, and I think it may already be on there. If it's sort of critical and you have some budget, we do paid feature enhancements. That's a pretty easy one. So if it is something that you or a number of others that really need, kind of let us know. But you don't want to give location permissions to all your members just so they can see the location code. I don't want if it's sort of that super critical right now, I'd almost put the location code in the name, but it's not a difficult task. And it's something that we'll definitely, I'll talk with the team. It's not super difficult. We just have a lot of options and a lot of things on the roadmap. But again, if it is something that is critical and you do happen to have budget, let us know. We can always our arms can always be twisted to bump features higher on the list or give you a sort of a fixed date for when it's going to be if you do have a little bit of budget to do it. And we're happy to give a proposal up front, including with timetables, and we're usually super fair. We basically do them at something like our cost as opposed to what we'd charge a big company to do a customization. Let's see. Next question on the list is, when a maintenance plan is overdue for an item, it still allows the item to be checked out. That is correct. I sort of covered that in passing when I was talking about maintenance. We do have some updates for maintenance plans to coming. Most likely would have been done if not for COVID and sort of a rearrangement of our schedule, but where basically it will not allow that item to be checked back out if it's overdue for maintenance. And what it'll do is if it's out when maintenance is due, when it's checked back in, it'll automatically go into that maintenance mode. And what we'll also be doing at that time when we add that feature is you'll either get a warning as an administrator that maintenance is due before the item is due back. So if your due date is after the next maintenance period, or we'll add an option to not allow the checkout beforehand. Often, a number of our customers will use the maintenance plans for things like calibrations. And so it's okay for the item to go out, but they definitely do want it to go into maintenance after it comes back in. But in other cases, if it is sort of required maintenance, you might want to do that maintenance before the item goes out. Yep, there was a question about selling items. Already answered that, and I had not seen the question here yet. Would you consider creating a video to show how to convert to an online application system? That was from Liz at Vashon. Could you, so and it says things to think about, impact on members. Can you give me a little more detail on what you're looking for?
Sure. So can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So what are all the things we need to think about? So, you know, we have 300 active members, but we'd like to put up these agreements. We'd like to get everybody engaged. What exactly do we need to be considering as we sort of involve all of our old members in this new process? I mean, because I understand they'll all need to sign these new agreements. Will they need to update their information? Are we asking people to re-enroll in the system? Can you sort of walk, I'm looking for a video to help me with this project and what we should anticipate just going through it.
So is this just about the user agreements, or did you not, or have you been not basically allowing or not allowing your members to sign up with their own user accounts at all in the past?
No, people can sign up with their own user accounts. They can
Okay.
choose their membership, including a no pay option.
Yeah.
They can enter their credit card number and
Yep.
store it. So we have that capacity. We have, and
Oh,
we
okay.
require a phone number. We
Yep.
require
Great.
email for them to do
So,
it.
yeah, so for the online agreements, once you add the agreement, just the next time they log into their myTurn account to place a reservation, it will basically it'll take them straight to basically the agreement that they need to sign instead of basically back to the inventory page. Nothing you really need to do. You can also enable agreements on certain membership types, and I can give you access to our sort of test or demo site so you can see what's going to happen, but it's actually the same, essentially the same thing that would happen or similar thing as when I just created that account, where they'll log in and then they're going to need to sign their agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just going to be a little bit of a, you don't need to create new accounts or anything. It's basically just once you add that agreement as an electronic version, it's going to basically pop up for them when they try to essentially log in next. If you make it just for requiring checkout, then it'll actually, I think it'll the first time it'll show up is when they go to place a reservation or they check out, but you probably want to do it like require for all. That way, as soon as they log into their online account, they'll get that. And really the only instruction would be after you enable that, you might want to email your membership and say, you know, please go in. You may have signed this before, but we've switched to online. So please just log into your myTurn account or into your Vashon Tool Library account once before you come in next to sign your agreement. So that way it's done before you get here. So
Sweet.
That's it. Nice and easy. Nothing complicated.
Sweet. Thank you.
You got it.
Hey, Gene, on that same note, will if they have to sign, if we set up and require address and phone number and stuff, will that show up so there's an opportunity for them to update that? Or would they have to, we have to tell them, please go in and double check? And
yeah, please, you'll have to tell them to go in and double check it. We don't have yet sort of a required, you know, update your address. I think someone else requested that or something very similar within the last week. And so, and this happens all the time. It's like something that no one's requested ever, and then it comes up multiple times recently. So I'm just gonna make a note of that. Because I think it's basically like sort of reconfirm your information. So
right,
someone's asked for it for like, and yeah, they it's something that they find they need and find critical, and so you will probably see that show up sometime next year.
okay.
And
Will the
probably
system
springtime.
if they're saving a credit card in there, will the system automatically say that the credit card's expired?
Yes, like if they won't be able to save an expired credit card. I don't know if we currently will sort of warn them when I don't think we automatically warn them the next time they log in that their credit card's expired, but if they're on recurring or automatic renewal of memberships, they will actually get a note saying that the renewal failed because their credit card's expired. And we do have some plans to actually to more proactively check and sort of recheck the card on file to make sure it's still valid. So Stripe has made some changes, and so we need to make a few changes there, but on our list to sort of reconfirm the payment information to make sure it's at least not expired.
Okay.
So let me just go through a bunch of questions. Oh, so one question from Susan: is there a way to allow reservations of workshop time outside of open hours? So an administrator can place a reservation for any day of the week at any time, override time slots. So as an administrator, you can reserve on behalf of users. If you have, we do have multiple location support, which I think you saw as well. So if you have like different hours for, say, different locations or potentially a workshop, if you're talking about like a physical workshop that people go and work in, let me just go over to this. So send me a note about that, and we can talk about if it would be better either if an admin creating the reservation before them, that works. Otherwise, can sort of set up additional locations that have their own hours and their own time slots that can differ from the tool library. And so we also have tool libraries and other customers that do have multiple locations now. So they're managing inventories in different spots, and our location support can be used for pickups. We have some mobile tool libraries and libraries of things. So people can say, I want to pick up the weekly farmers market, and they bring and drop off tools there. So another question. Oh,
Gene?
Yes.
Oh, so where do you do the original location?
Time slots?
Not the time slots, but just creating another location so that you eventually could put in time slots.
So that is an optional feature. Yeah. So
locations, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's enabled on your myTurn site, that it's usually for bigger organizations. It's not sort of it's not a feature that's enabled by default for everyone.
Yeah.
So if you are looking at that, let us know, and we're happy to enable. And especially if you're moving from a single location to multiple, there are some special considerations that we'll want to sort of guide you through.
Okay, thanks.
So so Jennifer Lynch from the Vashon Care Closet. Is there a way to make becoming a member automatic once they've filled out the required info and signed the online agreement? They have no membership fee and want to give users immediate availability. Yes, you can do that. So, and a number of our customers have basically done this accidentally. So under settings, members, registration, under the self-registration membership type, this process will be changing, but you'll still be able to do what you want. So basically, as soon as a user creates an account, so they fill in their username, password, their name, address, if you're asking that, phone number, they get a membership type. Like just for creating an account, they get a membership type. This is usually by default request, which is basically it's short for requested an account online or is requesting membership.
Right.
You could actually change that to any type of membership you want. So, if you wanted to make it, a bike membership.
Well, may I ask a quick question here?
Yeah.
It's because we're all volunteers. We don't have set hours. And sometimes requests will come in. And because we're doing medical supplies and equipment, people need it right away. And I would like to be able to make it so that as soon as they go through and give us their information and click that I agree to the thing,
Yep.
then without me doing anything, it becomes an okay. Is that?
Yeah, that is exactly it. So
So
basically, the other thing you can do is, so you can also leave this at request, and under settings, members, membership types, you can edit your request type, which is one of the default ones. And you can allow them to reserve items right away. So basically, as soon as they create an account, you can leave allow checkout out. That means you as an admin can't check items out to them until you sort of, usually our organizations will at least check ID, things like that. But if you want to allow them to reserve items immediately, you can do that. You can also allow items, allow an admin to check items out to them immediately. So the request membership type, or that membership type that people get as soon as they sign up, is basically just like any other. And so you can give them whatever permissions you want. So if you want, again, like they need something and you can allow them to reserve it as soon as they create an account before they purchase a membership.
Okay, we don't ask them
yeah,
that they can donate. I've got a donate thing, but okay.
Yeah, you might still want to have that donate, but you can also just you can just leave it as allow reservations as soon as they create the account, even if they don't sort of have that sort of full membership type already. And I wasn't sure if you meant that, or we also have a self-service kiosk mode where people can actually check items, like go and check items in and out themselves. We're doing some integrations with, I didn't think so, but in case anyone else. Longer term, we're working on integration. Well, one or two of our customers integrate it with their more customized electronic locks and locking system. We're going to be doing some integrations with some more standard electronic locks and lockers for allowing things like after hours pickup and drop off, or having a smaller selection of items that people can basically just go and check in and check out themselves out of an electronic locker system.
So, and we get alerted by the reservations, so we could go in and check in the reservations.
Yes,
okay.
You'll get an email as soon as someone places a reservation. You get an email, and so that way you'll know that they've reserved. Sorry for going on a little tangent before finishing answering.
We just what it has been before this marvelous software is we get a phone call or an email. Someone would run there, put it out in front of the Lutheran church where we're storing our stuff right now, and then pick it up at their convenience. We have a low theft rate here on the island, so we can do that. But that's changing soon. Your system is really streamlining our whole process. Okay. I'm moving them toward getting regular hours, and it is marvelous. I want to thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And as I said, thank all of you for the work that you guys are doing and helping communities. I mean, I was, like I said, a co-founder of the West Seattle Tool Library when I lived in Seattle, which I still miss the Puget Sound, but it's just the amazing community building, and especially right now with everything that people are going through and are going to be going through. Thank you all for the work that you're doing day to day. It is so important. It's going to be, if anything, even more needed over the coming months. So we're doing everything we can to try to, if you have other questions and suggestions at any point, we always want to hear, even if we can't get to something right away. I know, Miles might be a little frustrated. He asked about wish lists. I think it was over the summer. So other questions. So if not, Amanda. Oh, go for it, Neil.
I've got really just a quick question. I noticed when I was trying to look at questions I might have for you today, we had a person who made a reservation. It doesn't look like they ever acquired it. And now it's showing that the items show as not available, set aside. And yet then the item is this a reflection of a reservation that was never fulfilled? And so the reservation wasn't canceled, and so the system is holding on to it in aspiration that they'll pick it up soon.
So there are two things going on there, and I don't know if I have, I'll see if I can quickly find an item in that state. Oh, actually, hold on. Under inventory, list items. We might list it here. So basically that item is indeed, so it'll say like set aside for an order.
That's
So
what it's-
one, yeah. So one, you can actually find all of those under inventory list items. Just do a quick little, actually aside is probably going to be your best search. You click there, it'll actually take you to that order. And here's exactly one that was in the past. So one of the reasons we don't remove the items from the order is that some of our customers will pull items from inventory and they put them in a different place when they're basically getting those reservations ready for pickup. If they're not picked up, sometimes they'll leave them there until the end of the reservation. Sometimes they'll leave them there for 3 months. Yep. And what happens is if they don't remember that they're not back on the shelf or back in storage, this basically gives them that reminder. The item will show that way, but once the reservation is passed, I believe you, like someone else can still reserve it, can still check it out. But the easiest thing to do is you can click on one of those items and you can, same thing in the calendar. So if I jump over to the item, so, oh yeah, so set aside for an order. Up top, you can click there as well. You can just, okay, you go, okay, this is in the past. As I mentioned earlier, you can delete the items because they were never picked up anyway. That does sort of lose your history that someone at least requested them, even though they didn't pick them up. Or you can just cancel the order and that'll free them all up. It'll remove that set aside for an order. And if it's in the past, which that reservation was, it's not going to show up on your reservation list by default.
Great.
But the easiest thing is just click on that little label that says set aside for an order, and that'll take you to it and you can clear it from there.
Great. Next question was not in stock. I noticed also that we had some items, some of which were disposed of, but some of which, well, the system believes they're in inventory, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can find them. I'm not sure. I'm not libraries that has items we can't find. And so the question is, how do things get marked as not in stock? And is there a segregation between that and things that have been disposed of?
Yeah, so I do not love how this works, and we will be changing this. This is another one that would have been done if not for COVID. So if you want to say an item is never coming back, like it is broken, it is just you've sold it, you want to give it a status of disabled. And it literally needs to be disabled with a capital D in English. Even if your site is in Spanish, basically it needs to be that status right now. This was like on our list for last March. It kills me that it still works this way. What you also can do is give it another status of sold. So if the item is gone, you can basically give it disabled. That's going to hide it. So it's not going to show up in the inventory for administrators unless you click show disabled. And then give it a second status, because you can give one item multiple statuses of why is that item now gone. And that way you can also do items that might come back. You know, it's like it's missing. So you may or may not want to disable the missing items, but you can. And so that sort of disabled hides it everywhere by default. And then you can give it a secondary status of what actually happened to it. We are going to be adding some additional features. This is 2021, maybe 2022, of what happened to items after your use, as well as formalizing the process of how did you get them? Because we really want to tie into sort of full life cycle of the item. So you can already specify if an item was donated to you or it was new, but we're going to have some more optional features where you can say, oh, did we get this item used or new? And what happened to it afterwards. So we want to track that more specifically. So did it go for remanufacturing? Did it get recycled? Was it broken down for parts? Was it sold? To also help with impact reporting and sort of the circularity of your items, and sort of build that into sort of the whole history of the item and make it part of that history. And we're looking at potentially integrating with some if anyone's familiar with blockchain, which is what Bitcoin is based on, sort of the underlying technology, to sort of really do better tracking and verification of how many times items have been reused, how were they produced, et cetera.
And not in stock, what does that mean?
That's not one of ours. So that sounds like a status someone on your team probably set up.
Okay.
And
This is
so
another one of these settings on the screen you're showing us now is where
yeah,
you could add some that would go in here, and maybe we put that in there.
yeah. So you can add, so by default you either have, I think there's like one, I think disabled, and there might still be maintenance, which we probably should remove at this point, or we will once we have, but you can basically then edit or add additional statuses. So give them a name. You can even now give them a little badge color. So if you add that status and it's one of the, like it doesn't blend colors if you have two statuses with different colors, but if you only have one status, what is on-site use only? So, but those statuses are things that you set up. And let me just find, here's an item. In stock is something we set, but not in stock sounds like something that you guys set as a status.
Well,
so
it's not on our status list at the moment.
Oh, then send me a link to the item.
I will.
Is it literally say not in stock?
It does.
Interesting. It could also be someone did use the translation.
I'll check. Let me double check my notes are correct, Gene, but I'll
okay.
look.
Okay, no problem. But then as you see, so I gave this a status of on-site only. It uses the badge color that's set for that status, removes the calendar because that status doesn't allow for reservations or checkout. So, so statuses can be used in a few different ways, and yeah, let me know about that not in stock. One thing that Amanda asked in the chat, and oops, there might be more in chat, is looking at sort of stats across tool libraries and libraries of things. And we do have some plans there. And I'll probably be reaching, again, one of those other things, thank you, COVID. And I'll probably be reaching out to a number of you to see who wants to participate, and hopefully all of you. We're doing things like looking at, what are popular items in different regions and different areas based on different demographics, and are you more urban, suburban, rural, and basically other best practices to sort of help tool libraries and libraries of things really, one, see how does their impact compare to others, and how well are they operating, and even at looking at things like membership amounts and fees, retention rates and things like that, especially as we're going to be adding those membership reports, so that way you'll get some better data on that. We do also want to start to share some of those best practices across libraries and really help all of you help yourselves as well. And so we do have some of that data across tool libraries and libraries of things. And if people have ideas for other things you'd like to see, like across multiple locations and different organizations, definitely let us know. And sort of speaking of data collection, one of the others that we're working with multiple customers right now on are basically both cost savings by borrowing items rather than purchasing them, as well as greenhouse gas emission reductions. And so the way we're working there is we were looking at sort of what's the embedded amount of energy in the item, and then reducing that specific item. We're actually potentially leaning a little bit more towards, or at least offering this as an option to go, if you borrowed this item at least once, you've potentially avoided purchasing an item like that. It might not be the exact same one, so we're going to sort of offer the option to use model items to say, it's a power drill. Maybe you don't have the life cycle analysis for the particular power drill that was borrowed, but you've avoided purchase of a power drill and then taking sort of the average emissions factor of a power drill to really look at that to help for impact reporting. If it's around climate, and then doing, adding in a little bit more on the qualitative reporting. So some standardizing, and this I think would be important across different libraries and regions, is, how far are people traveling to get to the tool library? Would they have been able to purchase the item? Because basically transportation, picking items up and dropping them off, comes into that, climate an emissions type. Are you walking? Is it on, was it on your way? And getting a better idea and a better feel for sort of real savings, whether it's financial, whether it's environmental factors, as well as just, how are you really helping your members? Because that type of data is gold, especially for those of you that are nonprofits, which is most of you, for doing grant reporting, doing grants. Having that type of data is just great. And I think especially, and we also have a little bit of a Lending Library Alliance started. There's a Slack group. There's a Facebook group as well. And Slack, for those of you that don't like Facebook, I'm not a big fan. I kind of consider them a criminal enterprise, but that's a whole different story. But if you're interested in joining, if you have any copious spare time or even a little bit of spare time to, help organize, that would be great. If you know someone in your network who is looking to help, sort of would maybe they don't have time to spend at the tool library, but might have time or would be interested in helping organize, best practices across tool libraries, and maybe putting together a separate nonprofit to help do those best practices or training and things like that to help tool libraries get started and to provide those best practices. I'm trying to not be the one that leads that effort, since I'm running a whole nother organization, and I'm already on the board or two of some other nonprofits. So so if again, if it's not you, because I know certainly when I was part of the West Seattle Tool Library, that was like all my extra time, and I fully understand that. But if there are people in your networks that might be interested in something like this, feel free to put them in contact with me, and I'd love to sort of get them involved with whatever level they can. So, any other questions?
I have a question kind of for the group. I've been thinking about adding or doing a monthly membership. All of my memberships are annual right now, sliding scale. And I'm wondering how popular those are, and how beneficial they are for sort of managing your customer count and the income side of, if you're getting people to renew for 3 months, even if it's at a lower number, maybe there's more income there. Should I do that? Should I not?
So we just released the automatic renewal and recurring basically as COVID hit. That was like the main thing that we were working on. So I'm going to guess that most people in this group are not using the automatic recurring, and so they're not doing monthly. We do have a number of other customers, and if anyone is using it, feel free to unmute and speak up. And I just saw a couple of things in chat. Okay, so but we do have customers that were either doing it outside of myTurn, which was a bit of a nightmare, and some that have started to do it now, and they've definitely found that it is useful in a couple of ways. One, it really evens out your revenue across the year, because you're basically getting it monthly. That can definitely be helpful. It is a lower amount, so that way some people who might not be able to afford the whole year, although again, I think most people in this group are doing this on a donation basis. It also then allows them, even if it's your donation basis, allows them to do a smaller donation more regularly. And so that can also be helpful. So if they don't want to do, or don't feel like they can do a $20, $50, $100, $120 donation once a year, a 10 or a 20 per month can be a little bit easier for them to swallow. And the ones that do require, like they have a required paid membership, unless they sort of show proof of income to get a reduced price, it is getting pretty popular pretty quickly. We have a couple of features we're going to be adding there at request of a few of our customers, including things like you get essentially when you do monthly, you're committing for a year. So it'd basically still be a yearly, but you're paying it in essentially monthly installments. That was a request that one of our customers made, and they were basically afraid someone would pay for a month and then sort of let it lapse, borrow what they need, let it lapse, and really just sort of pay every time they need, sort of when they needed stuff, and borrow like 20 tools. They haven't seen that happen. So I think it's a little bit less of an issue to have that yearly commitment. So most people, once they kind of set it, they forget it. Sort of like a gym membership, except where you can actually cancel at the end of your kind of current monthly really easily, rather than, we make it easy, because most of our customers, they don't want to just tie people in and make it difficult for them to quit. They can then undo it. So I would definitely say to at least experiment with it and offer it. You may get people that they'd rather do it as that monthly. Other people would rather just do a yearly, so they don't have something hitting their credit or debit card every single month.
I did play with it a little bit in the past week, because we had some people with issues signing up for membership, and I'll say that the best thing that well, not the best thing, it's all great, but my favorite part was the renewal period. So you can have a monthly membership and then have a renewal period of 6 months or 3 months versus, the whole year, or instead of doing a month to month. So then you're having that,
yes,
instead of that insecurity of, canceling after 1 month or whatever the case may be. But
yeah, exactly. So you can use the automatically recurring with any duration. So you could do 3 months as opposed to 1 month as well. So do quarterly instead of yearly. And then we have a renewal window, which is actually just the time period during which, is it a new membership or is it a renewal of the previous membership? So the renewal window of 1 month on a 1 year would mean that up until basically 1 month after their membership expired, it would extend their previous membership rather than be a brand new membership. So.
And I see the question just came up that I was thinking of as well. The transaction fees for like credit cards,
yes.
And we handled that with deposits by simply just storing credit card information and not charging any deposits. But is that something maybe built into this, or is there a charge period, or is it approved? I guess we haven't dealt with that yet.
So it is. There are still credit card transaction fees. So you will be paying. There are per transaction as well as a percentage. So it is, you are going to be keeping more of that initial amount by doing the yearly over the monthly. So that is a good question. It's, I think, about 30. The fixed percentage on Stripe, I think, is 30 cents now. Don't quote me on that. Having said that, if you get people to sign up for a monthly or a quarterly that wouldn't do a yearly, that's a big win. And if they're doing automatic recurring rather than, oh, it expired, I'm not going to actually, I'll get around to renewing when I do, we've actually found that using the online payments does lead to higher renewal rates. And so overall basically increased membership and increased revenue. So even given the fees associated, so we as myTurn will also take, so Stripe takes, I believe it's 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. Again, don't quote me on that, check with Stripe. And then by default, myTurn will take 2.1%. So you're losing about 5% total by using the online payment system. But on the flip side, it tends to increase membership retention and revenue by way more than 5%. So it tends to be a win. Even with the monthly memberships, you're losing a bit more, that transaction fee. The one other option we offer, primarily customers, so we have some customers that will charge essentially a rental fee or a per use fee or a per day fee on some of their tools. and others that are pretty heavy on, they always charge their late fees. We also have a postpaid statement option where basically you can roll all of the fees that are charged during the course of the month into a monthly statement that either can be auto paid, just like membership, or that gets emailed to them every month. And then they can go in, review their statement just like they would, say, their cell phone or anything else, and pay that once a month. So that's still a once a month type of thing, but at least if you're doing multiple charges over the course of a month, it's essentially ending up on their statement. And so you're reducing those per transaction fees. So if you're doing a lot of late fees via credit card and don't want to lose the transaction fees, putting those onto their account and then doing monthly statements is another option. And monthly statements is actually one of the places where we plan to add some of those both impact, environmental, and financial sort of statements to communicate with members. That'll be a later 2021 type of thing. So basically send out that monthly summary of their borrowing activity, how many items they borrowed. We have that now, but then also, if you want to do a calculation of how much they've saved by borrowing over purchasing. And then once we have some good data and can do environmental and climate impacts, have that right in that monthly statement as well. So, and we'll be able to do that without doing the monthly charges on the statements as well. But I just thought I'd mention that's coming up as well.
Kind of in that same idea, Jean, can you accrue these recurring memberships or like monthly memberships if someone wanted to pay cash or by check instead? I think I just didn't get that far down the form.
You can. You can if you're using, so you can accrue the memberships, and actually the membership, if it's monthly or quarterly, will just accrue on their statement. If you're using statements, there is an option to automatically accrue the membership onto their statement as well. So you can either have it charged separately. So some of our customers will have, it's a larger membership fee and they just want to get that membership fee as soon as it's charged. But you can also have the option to accrue that, as well as things like self-renew when they're paying late fees or paying loan fees. So yes. And we'll be adding some additional options around automatic accrual with statements. Any other questions? These have been great questions. Let me check the chat. Yep, just another thank you. And I think we're slowly losing people.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna actually leave this time. I was going to leave and now I'm really gonna leave. So thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, Amanda. Oh, Heather's coming
thank
back.
you so much. I think you might have actually answered all the questions.
That is great. And if I didn't, or you think of something else, which I'm sure the Vashon team certainly will, you guys, all of you know how to, and Miles, please, you all know how to reach out to me. Feel free to. We always want feedback. Constructive criticism is great. Feature requests is wonderful. How we can make the platform better, we always want to know. And whether it's to me or to support@myturn.com or support.myturn.com, just let us know.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. So our plans in general, just so for those who are remaining on the call here, we're going to be doing an equity training in the February timeframe online. And we're also going to be, planning a conference for next fall. So, and then also some focused workshops that would be, topic specific. So, Fixer or Fix-It Fair or Tool Library, because there seemed to be more desire to have more cross communication. And Jean, of course, you'll be invited to all those.
Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you so much for today. That was awesome.
Thank you all.
Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.